day 21 of reading every single day for the rest of my life. We got Discipline is Destiny. I'm going to start 30 minutes right now. Keep the main thing the main thing. Booker T. Washington was a busy man. He ran the Tuskegee Institute, which he founded. He traveled constantly to speak to crowds and to meet with donors. He lobbied legislatures, gave lectures, led fundraising campaigns, and published 5 books. How did he manage it all? It wasn't just endurance and hustle and energy. It was also the discipline to say the dreaded word, no. The number of people who stand ready to consume one's time is no purpose, he said. It's almost countless. Some thought him aloof, some thought him selfish, some said things behind his back. He was too busy to notice. He knew that the main thing in life was to keep the main thing, especially when your main thing is uplifting an entire race of people. But what is the main thing for the rest of us? That is the main question. If you don't know the answer, how can you possibly know which to say yes and no to? How can you know what to show up to? What to wake up for? What to practice? What to endure? You can't. You're winging it. You're vulnerable to every shiny, exciting thing that comes your way. Every I've got a potential opportunity for you. Every it'll take only a minute. Every thanks in advance. Every I know you're busy. But anyone who has not groomed his life in general towards some definite end cannot possibly arrange his individual actions properly. The writer Michel de Montaigne reminded himself, if you don't know where you're sailing, the Stoic said, no wind is favorable. This means first, the discipline to step away and think, what am I doing? What are my priorities? What is the most important contributions I make to my work, to my family, to the world? Then comes the discipline to ignore just about everything else. Booker T. Washington had a strong sense of purpose, educating a generation of black men and women. He had the clarity of the urgency to reject the things that stood to consume his time in the service of some other purpose. Without that, like so many people, he'd have been eaten alive, his time and power picked apart, one request and a distraction at a time. I wish I knew how people do good and long sustained work and still keep all kinds of other lines going, social, economic, etc. John Steinbeck once wrote in the middle of a long grind of writing a novel, how do they do it? They don't. It is impossible to be committed to anything, professionally or personally, without the discipline to say no to the other or superfluous things. An interview request, a vibrant social media presence, a glamorous dinner party, an exotic trip, a lucrative side venture, an exciting new trend. No one is saying these things won't be fun, that they don't have potential benefits. It's simply that they also carry with them opportunity costs. They require resources and energy that each person has only so much of. The secret to success in almost all fields is large, uninterrupted blocks of focused time, and yet how many people organize their day or live to make this possible? And then they wonder why they are frazzled, unproductive, and overwhelmed, always behind. Here is the inescapable logic. Everything we say yes to means no to someone else, something else. No one can be in 2 places at once. No one can give all their focus to more than one thing. But the power of this reality is also work for you. Every no one can also be a yes to what really matters. To a rebuff, one opportunity means to cultivate another. This is the key not to just professional success, but also to personal happiness. When someone takes just a few minutes of your time, they aren't just robbing you, though they admit this when they also ask to pick your brain and thus your pocket. They're also robbing your family. They're robbing the people who you serve. They're robbing the future. The same goes for when you agree to do unimportant things, or when you commit to too much at one time, except this time you are the thief. No one made you hop on the conference call. No one forced you to attend the event or accept the award. There's no law that says you have to reply to every email, return every call, have an opinion on every bit of news. In tech, they speak of feature creep, when a founder or a project manager isn't disciplined enough to protect the core concept of an idea and allows too much to be jammed in it. Trying to please everyone, they end up pleasing no one. Try to do everything is to ensure you'll achieve nothing. This weaker part of ourselves that cannot say no to requests for our times, that tries to go along with everything, perhaps deep down wants that same excuse. If we agreed to their thing, then we don't have to answer for the poor performance of our thing when it's time for a full accounting. It allows us to say, if only I weren't so busy. The self-disciplined part of us, on the other hand, says, like the Queen mottos, better not. Or maybe we just borrow the quip from E.B. White, who was asked to join some prestigious commission. I must decline, he said, for secret reasons. A clerk of Sandra Day O'Connor once said with reverence, Sandra is the only woman I know who doesn't say sorry. Woman would say, sorry, I can't do that. She would just say, no. Say no. Own it. Be polite when you can, but own it. Because it's your life, and because it is your power. By seizing it, you become powerful. Most powerful, in fact, than some of the most powerful people in the world who happen to be slaves in their calendars, ambitious, and appetites. The conquerors who rule over enormous empires but are slaves to salutations. The billionaires who fear missing out. The leaders always chasing the shiny new thing. Who cares if you have achieved extraordinary things but are punished for it by having even less freedom day to day? It feels like you're free because you're choosing. But if the answer is always yes, that's not much of a choice. Perhaps this is what makes an antidote about General James Matisse from his time as Secretary of Defense as unusual. Matisse, notoriously private and duty-bound, was not interested in doing the rounds of Sunday morning talk shows that Washington politicians usually line up for the hogs at the trough. He didn't care about his brand. He didn't care about playing the game. No, he wanted to work. He wanted to actually get things done. Begged, prodded, bothered, and then criticized by administration officials for not helping them get messages out. He finally called the media office and then very calmly reiterated this. No, I've killed people for a living, he explained. If you call me again, I'm going to fucking send you to Afghanistan. Are we clear? And that was the end of that. No one can say yes to their destiny without saying no to one thing, to what is clearly someone else's. No one can achieve their main thing without the discipline to make it the main thing. Focus, focus, focus. Ludwig van Beethoven was in the middle of our conversation, and then just disappear. Even if it was talking to Ludwig van Beethoven would be in the middle of a conversation and then just disappear. Even if he was talking to a woman he was in love with, or some powerful prince or patron, when an important musical idea came to him, he would lock into it, be consumed by it, almost like he was in a trance. So instant and so deep it was his focus. Are you even listening to me? A friend once asked. Sorry, Beethoven replied. I was just occupied with such a lovely, deep thought I couldn't bear to be disturbed. They called this his raptus, his flow state, his place of deep work, the source of his musical greatness. He was being seized by the muses, but also seizing them in return, refusing to let go until he had gotten what he needed. Now it just might seem a little indulgent, even undisciplined for an artist to simply check out like this, to be at the whim of their passing thoughts. But it's actually an act of immense self-control and focus. It's easy to stay out of the surface. It's easy to be distracted with distractions. To respect the muses when they visit. To try to focus on the main thing. To try to ignore everything and to follow a flit of inspiration or brain power towards some intractable problem you can't seem to make progress on. This is a mental challenge we have to steel ourselves for. This is what we have to cultivate the ability to do, to commit, to truly, fully, completely commit, because it is extremely rare. In a world full of distraction, focusing is a superpower. People say they're focused, but then their phone pings, they get distracted, they get tired, they try to multitask. They don't actually have the discipline to try to truly lock into something. Keeping the main thing is not enough. Once the plate is cleared, you must be able to put on your whole mind to the main thing. It has to get all of you. The Stoics tell us that we must learn how to focus in every moment like a Roman, to seize this thought, this opportunity that is in front of us. We can't waste it. We have to winnow our thoughts. We have to narrow our gaze to what matters and commit to it. In yogic tradition, this is called Ekaggrata, intense focus on a singular point, the ability to put your mind fully onto something, allowing you to understand both it and yourself in a new way. Beethoven wasn't just known for drifting off in social conversations, but also for profound, concentrated periods of focus on a single piece of music. A symphony doesn't simply write itself. No flash of inspiration or a single moment of raptus would be sufficient. It took hours, days, months, years of prolonged and exclusive dedication to every facet of this project. There is even some tragic irony in Beethoven's legendary focus. As his hearing declined, it went unnoticed by many of his closest friends because they assumed he was simply lost in his work. They believed that he could hear them had he wanted to. They took it for granted that he was just tuning the world out, as he had for so many years, to focus on what he really needed to hear, the muses. All artists and leaders have to develop the skill. Although Goethe and Beethoven did not get along particularly well, they were both similar in this ability. One biographer described Beethoven as expert at ignoring things. Both he and Beethoven combined this with their ability to commit to their art and unlock into the task or project in front of them to legendary results. It's just a fact. The muses never blessed the unfocused, and even if they did, how would they noticed? We joke about the absent-minded professor as if they're somehow less than normal people. It's actually the exact opposite. They are showing us what full commitment looks like in practice. The rest of us are far too concerned with things that don't matter to recognize that true mental discipline comes at a cost, and they are the ones willing to pay for it. They might not be able to find their car keys, or they put on mismatching socks. In the end, what will they most likely be remembered for? The occasional social foxbuzz, or the transformative work that results from their focused commitment? Every waking minute, every ounce of brain power has been marshaled toward the enormous problems they are trying to solve, or to the research they are pioneering, or to the musical revolution they are defining with each measure and movement. That means not just by saying no to the things, but by saying yes to the critical task in front of you. So Ive and other Apple employees about what they were focused on, and specifically, how many things have you said no to? Because he was focused on because to focus on one thing requires not focusing on another, less important things. Epictetus reminded us that when you say, I'll get serious about this, or tomorrow, or I'll focus on it later, what you're really saying is, today I'll be shameless, immature, and base. Others will have the power to distress me. No, if it's worth doing, it's worth concentrating on today, it's worth focusing on now. Because, like Beethoven, none of us know how many good years we have or how long our faculties will last. We must use them while we can. Wait for the sweet fruit. Joyce Carol Oates is one of the most prolific and dedicated writers of her generation, yes. But would this be admirable if she simply rushed her books out? Obviously not. Prolific cannot be a euphemism for sloppy. If it's simply that Oates shows us and writes a lot, there is, on top of this hard physical labor, serious mental discipline that moderates her drive to create and polish what she ultimately publishes. I almost never publish immediately, she explained. Each one of her manuscripts, after the completion of the first draft, is placed in a drawer, where it sits sometimes for a year or more. There it gestates. Oates thinks about the other projects. She explores other ideas. She reads more, researches more, lives more, thinks more. It's not that these first drafts aren't good, it's that we always doubt our first bursts of excitement, and indeed anything that comes off easily. Oates' patience is about acquiring perspective, about giving all the tiny decisions that go into a book enough time to get them right. It may be that she adds a few pages, it may be that she cuts whole characters or scenes. Most of the time the changes are very minor, but the precautionary process is essential as it with any meaningful act of creation. When Lincoln wrote the Emancipation of Proclamation, he not only waited for the right political and military moment to deliver it, but he put it aside multiple times as he was writing it. Like a painter with their sketches, he said, from time to time adding a line or two, touching it up here and there, anxiously watching the progress of events. Was this easy, waiting for the right moment, whether one a writer or a politician, in an agonizing thing? is an agonizing thing, but Aristotle reminds us patience is bitter, but its fruit is sweet. No matter what it is, no matter what it is that we do, we will have to cultivate beyond hustle and hard work. The discipline of patience. It may be that all this soft skill challenges us more than the hours in the chair of the years of grinding. When your instinct is to go when you really want to get after it, waiting, well, the waiting is the hardest part. To wait for the news, to wait for the right opportunity, to wait for things to settle, to wait for the solution to come to you, to wait for the people to come around you, to wait while you check your assumptions, to wait and see if you think better of it. What do we get out of waiting? Well, the Bible says that through our patience we come to possess nothing less than our souls. The discipline of patience prevents us from acting on insufficient information, from picking the wrong option, from going too soon, from forcing it, from rushing people or giving up on them, from the wrong conclusion, from missing out on all the wonderful rewards that come to those who wait. Patience, as Edison illustrated, is a primary ingredient of genius. Even fits of inspiration or flashes of brilliance are worthless without the patience of polish, refine, and ultimately release. Edison's genius was exactly this: the patient commitment to test things over and over again, to put an experiment or an invention aside until someone could procure him better raw materials, figuring out how not to just invent the light bulb, but to doggedly develop a way of delivering the electricity undergrounded to the first block of houses, and then navigating the politics required to actually make this a reality of New York City. It is impossible for an impatient person to work with others. It is impossible for them not to make errors of judgment and of timing. It is impossible for them to do important things, because almost everything that matters takes longer than it should, certainly longer than we would like. Meanwhile, the patient person is not easier to work with, but more protected and resilient. As Da Vinci wrote, patience serves as protection against wrongs as well as do against cold. But if you put on more clothes as the cold increases, it will have no power to hurt you. So in like manner, you must grow in patience when you meet the great wrongs, and they will then be powerless to vex your mind. Buckle up and wait, that's what it takes. But we need not just day-to-day patience, but long patience. Shackleton level patience. To put this book in a drawer while it gestates. To go to sleep and come back to it tomorrow. To let the compounding interest do its work. To let your investment appreciate. To let your plan take effect. To let people catch up to your idea that was ahead of its time. To be vindicated by events to come. But that's the point. If things went exactly the way we wanted, if it didn't demand discomfort and sacrifice and patient endurance, then no discipline would be required, and everyone would do it. When the fruit wouldn't be just less sweet, someone would have already eaten it. Perfectionism is a vice. In the winter of 1931, Martha Graham was hopelessly bogged down in a dance series she has choreographed called Ceremonials, inspired by Mayan and Aztec cultures. A notorious perfectionist, she despaired of ever completing the dance, worried critical, consumed by guilt that she had wasted her Guggenheim Fellowship. Graham was convinced that she could not meet the expectations of her rising reputation, much less the vision she had in her own head. The winter is lost, she whimpered in self-pity. The whole winter works is lost. I've destroyed my year. This work's no good. Even though her dancers loved it, even though they had committed body and soul to it, all she could see was needed to be changed. What was needed to be changed? All she could see were the ways it wasn't perfect, and she trapped her in a kind of creative prison. It's the tragic fate of greats across many different fields. Their success is built on their incredibly high standards, often higher than anyone, including the audience or the market, could demand. But this virtue is also a terrible vice, not just preventing them from enjoying what they have achieved, but making it increasingly impossible to ship the next thing. Because it's never good enough, because there's always more they can do, because it doesn't measure up what they did last time. Da Vinci was like this, becoming almost seriously incapable of finishing his paintings. Steve Jobs got stuck releasing the Macintosh before he was fired from Apple. A biographer of the novelist Raphael Ellison speaks of perfectionism that was so clogging the man's arteries that, in one case, Ellison produced 40 drafts of a short statement about one of his own books. a book he had lived and breathed for decades and should have been able to hammer out in 40 minutes. The tragic result was that Ellison had never published a follow-up to his masterpiece. Invisible Man, despite writing some 19 inches of futile manuscript pages over the years, what is it? Was it humility? An obsession was getting the little things right? No, those were reassuring excuses we make of what often a kind of narcissism and obsession. We're convinced everyone cares so much about what we're doing that we get stuck. We tell ourselves it's self-discipline when in fact it's self-consciousness. As they say, another way to spell perfectionism is Parlaysis. An obsession with getting it perfect misses the forest of the trees, because ultimately the biggest miss of it all is failing to get your shot off. What you don't ship, what you're afraid of strict to release, to try, is by definition a failure. It doesn't mature the cause, whether it was procrastination or perfectionism. The result is the same. You didn't do it. The Stoics remind us we can't abandon the pursuit because we despair of perfecting it. Not trying because you're not sure you can win, you're not sure whether everyone will love it. There is a word for that too. Cowardness. We have to be brave enough to soldier on, to give it a shot, to take our turn, to step into the arena. Even though we might well lose, we have to be strong enough to do this too. Martha Graham was lucky to have collaborators who pushed her when necessary and helped to rescue her from the excesses of her own exacting self-discipline. When she was trapped with ceremonies, her musical director, Louis Horst, stepped in and told her, one cannot always create on the same level the Sixth Symphony allowed for the Fifth. But without the Sixth, we could not have had the Seventh. We cannot know the one thing leading into. Transitions are just important as achievements. Perfect is not just the enemy of the gods, as they say, but it's the enemy of everything that might come after. If you get stuck, your potential does too. This is why finishing it is itself an achievement, an act of monumental discipline that must happen. Of course, you want to keep tinkering, keep tweaking, keep running to the problems over in your mind, but you need to be able to stop yourself to say, finally, this is done. But you need to be able to stop yourself to say, finally, this is done. And if you can't do that on your own, if you have trouble with the last mile on your projects, or if you know you can't fall prey to perfectionism, then do you have the self-discipline to find partners who can cut you off and balance you out? Martha was certainly successful enough to surround herself with sycophants and yes men, and she didn't. She understood she needed moderating influences, wise advisors, and trusted patrons. If she was to produce great work, as great Ralph Ellison and Da Vinci were, as in command of their genius as they both were, they struggled with this. As Martha's biographer and dance partner, Agnes de Mille, explained about Louis, he was the only one, who could discipline Martha herself into finishing her pieces, shaping them up and getting them ready for performance. He was quite practical about this. After giving her leeway for weeks or even months, he would at least call a halt and demand decisions, which Martha, in her hysterical turmoils, did not always wish to make. The dances get done, not always finished, but done. Thanks to Louise, she wrote, there always was a first performance. And without a first performance, we know there was never a chance of moving closer to the perfect asymptote we're all striving to reach. Do the hard thing first. There have been fewer quotes more misunderstood and misattributed than Nicholas Champfort's suggestion that a man must shallow a toad every morning if he wishes to be sure of finding nothing still more disgusting before the day is over. Short end and often credited to Mark Twain, the idea is that if we eat the frog at the beginning of the day, it will be the next to be impossible for the day to get any worse. A more applicable interpretation of this idea was expressed by the poet and pacifist William Stafford's daily rule: do the hard things first. Don't wait. Tell yourself you'll warm up to it. Don't tell yourself you get this other stuff out of the way and then. No, do it now. Do it first. That's called prioritization. Get it over with. In fact, Champfort himself credits an unknown M. de Lassay for the line. That's called self-care. Remember, Toni Morrison didn't get up before dawn for some me time. The mornings weren't. Let me redo that. Remember, Toni Morrison didn't get up before dawn for some meantime. The mornings weren't for catching up on the news or folding laundry. She had a short window and she used it to write, seizing the day while others weren't yet stirring. This wasn't easy. There were many days where she didn't want to, but when she followed through, there were things she did to her pages quietly in the morning light. Not only was she moving closer to her goal of becoming a great writer, she was in another sense giving herself me time, because now the rest of the day she was a bonus. By taking care of difficult business, she was taking care of herself. She had owned the morning, she had eaten the frog, and now everything else was extra. Nothing else was harder than the battle she'd already won. Just as days are made of mornings, lives are made of days. To procrastinate at any time, day or night, young or old, to push it until later, it's a loser's game. The one thing all fools have in common, Seneca wrote, is that they're always getting ready to live. They tell themselves they just need to get some things in place first, that they are just not feeling it yet, that they'll get to it after. What exactly? Exactly nothing. They'll get to it, we never do. They'll never get to it, we never do. You'll never need to be smarter than that, more disciplined than that. I ceaselessly chant the refrain. Montagaz said, anything you can do another day can be done now. He who was postponed the half hour of living right, Herrica wrote, is like the rustic who waits for the river to run out before he crosses. To paraphrase the Stoics, you could be good now, instead you chose tomorrow. To procrastinate is to be entitled. It is arrogant. It assumes there will be a later. It assumes you'll have the discipline to get it later, despite not having the discipline now. The graveyard of lost potential, we might say, is filled with people who needed to do something else first. The time is to do it now. The time is to get it started now. The thing is to start with the harder part, the part you want to do the least, not grudgingly, but promoting and enthusiastically, with a body that's been trained for hard work and a mind that's sharp and focused. Fools are too weak, too scared, too disciplined for this, which is a problem for them but an opportunity for you, because it's here that you'll win. They'll be delaying, you'll be pulling ahead, but only if you start now. Can you get back up? In 1959, Floyd Patterson put his title on the line to fight Engineer Joe Johnson. Although he trained hard for the fight, there was something missing in Patterson's camp as the day approached. Maybe it was hunger, maybe it was commitment. Patterson was bored, he was impatient, he was overconfident. And when he got in the ring, it showed. He was not the man who deserved to win. Every fighter should be a little afraid of what could happen to him. Patterson would reflect on the fight later, because fear makes your mind sharper. When you have nothing to fear, your mind becomes dull. But he didn't think he could lose, and you could see he wasn't sharp. In the third round, we went down 7 times. The fight was finally stopped. The horrible words came to him as Frog of the Punches cleared. I've lost the championship. Patterson couldn't believe, but it was true, and more painfully still, it was all his fault. Now, this could have been the end of the victory, in fact, for all of boxing history, to the point in almost every title fight since it was. Once a champion loses their belt, they never win it back. They're done. They're down for the count. Patterson spent weeks moping, kicking himself. The guilt made him sick. He could barely sleep nor even look at his children in the eye. He was knocked out. Oh. This timer's up. I'm going to keep reading. Then a letter arrived from Archie Moore, the boxer who Patterson had himself beaten to get the title. Dear Floyd, it said, I know you must feel. I hope you don't continue to feel bad. The same thing had happened to many fighters, of course. I had hated to lose you, and fate decreed it in that way. Continuing the letter broke down the fight of the obvious problems with the Patterson strategy before concluding. If you concentrate your jab and move around this guy, you can be the first one to regain the crown. You can do it. Your friend, Archie Moore. It's worth taking a minute to recognize the incredible kindness as well as self-discipline it takes for a former champion to take the time to write, unsolicited, such encouragement to their arrangements at their lowest moment. Moore could have taunted Patterson. Instead, he had helped him believe in himself. This moment of grace was exactly what Patterson, who was slipping into despair, so badly needed. His backslide was arrested. The pity party ended. He had been reminded of his legacy. He could turn this into something. Training camp resumed. He willed himself to watch the film of his ignominious defeat, learning from each tutorious viewing. And then, in June 1960, almost exactly a year later to the day, Floyd Patterson knocked out Ingemar Johansson midway through the 5th round. Floyd hit Johansson so hard the man took 5 minutes to regain consciousness in the middle of the ring. Damn. In 20 years of prize fighting, Patterson was the first ever and only of the 4 to regain a heavyweight title, a powerful reminder that defeat is not final and that backslides cannot be stopped. We're all going to mess up. We'll show up to a life-changing opportunity unprepared. We'll fall off our diet on our sobriety. We'll lose our temper and embarrass ourselves. We'll make mistakes. We'll be beaten. That's the thing about discipline. It never fails us, but sometimes we fail it. But will that be the end of it? Is that who we are, or can we get back up? Losing is not always up to us, but being a loser is. Being a quitter is saying, what the hell does it even matter? That's on us. Throwing on the towel on a fight we've clearly lost is one thing. Throwing in the towel on fighting are the standards from your point forward. Now you've been more than beaten. You've been defeated. All right, that was day 21. See you on day 22. Bye-bye.